Hey Neil, great to see you again.
Likewise.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a year, roughly, since we last spoke. How was 2016 for Netronome? Did it play out as you thought it would?
It sort of played out in the same ways we thought. The key thing for us was getting a lot more traction in what I would like to call the NFV space specifically. Yeah. So obviously our technology is applicable to a number of different areas. And the NFV one seems to be an area where we've really sort of hit some sweet spots for key customers and their requirements.
For folks watching who aren't familiar with Netronome, just give us the high view on what it is that you provide as a solution to service providers.
Yeah, so our core focus is around what we call SmartNICs. In other words, co-processors within standard servers, because the whole NFV market, as you know, is driven by standard servers. But for specifically NFV applications, there are issues in terms of the ability to truly use standard servers because of the unique nature of the applications that service providers have.
Right.
They tend to be much more driven by small packet performance, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So the network elements and the performance thereof is very important.
So essentially you're coming in and you're alleviating one of the big concerns that service providers have around virtualization, which is that the performance is going to drop.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the key interesting new things which is coming along is that because of the performance issues that people have had, what I would like to call the first phase of NFV sort of experimentation and deployment has been around, I need to go build a server which does SRIOV here. I need to have a standard server over there. I need to have another server which does the virtualization over here. And that unfortunately is the situation for most of the carriers today. And it sort of breaks one of the core tenets of cloud.
Right.
Because how and why are the cloud service providers very profitable, efficient, etc.? From a carrier perspective, we can take it back to the old world when we made the transition from circuit switching to packet switching, where packets allowed you statistical multiplexing. And the same reason the cloud guys can put different applications on all of the servers and achieve a utilization factor of 90 to 95%. Yeah. So the server is 90 to 95% busy. Yeah. How is that done? Virtualization. You can't do it if you can't take virtual containers and move, or virtual machines and containers and move them around and put them on whichever server you have. Right. The problem in the NFV space now is that we're getting stranded resources. So it's almost like going back to a circuit switching model, especially with large deployments of SRIOV. Right. SRIOV means you can't move the virtual machines around. Right. Right. So you're stuck.
So you're getting very poor utilization on the servers.
You could end up with very poor utilization on the servers.
Yeah. A huge headache.
And it's also a huge managerial headache. Right. You end up with stranded things all over the place. Yeah. Now, this is where our core value proposition comes in, specifically around our XVIO solutions. XVIO is basically the Netronome accelerated version of VirtIO, which is a standard driver structure that's in every operating system build today. And that allows us to achieve the same, our hardware allows us, the SmartNICs allows us to achieve the same performance with the VirtIO drivers as with SRIOV. The big difference being that you can move your virtual machines around to your heart's content. And that's all supported by OpenStack, which is another key area of focus for us. Right. And that is a very core value proposition from the carrier's perspective.
Are the products being installed by carriers now then?
It's all in POCs and trials at the moment. Yeah. That's one of our pain points.
Right.
Not just for us, but I think for the industry.
Well, an interesting thing happened last year, isn't it? Because last year everything was supposed to move out of POC into live, and then it stalled. And it stalled in about sort of September was when the shift was supposed to happen. It didn't happen, and then the whole industry just sort of blinked. like this, and everybody sort of looked at each other, I think, and got a bit worried. Now it feels like things are loosening up again, and that move is going to happen, but it's not going to happen until this year. Do you have a sense for when we're going to see more of these live deployments?
Yeah, so our expectations is around the middle of the year.
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing and hearing about and obviously working towards. But I think one of the core reasons for the blink is exactly the issue that I just indicated.
Yeah.
Is that people have sort of gone down, boof, 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 boof. We're going to turn everything into servers. It's all going to be software. Wonderful. And then, oh, hell, what are we going to do now?
Right.
We're essentially breaking a lot of the key tenets of DevOps, the cloud, virtualization, utilization, because of the particular needs.
Right.
And it's sort of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Well, it's when the cloud goes clunk.
Yeah. And I think that SmartNICs is a key solution
to
actually solving many of these problems. Because with a SmartNIC, and such as ours, where you can actually deploy the NICs, put them in the servers, you could load what we call our core NIC software, which allows you to just have all of the standard NIC functionality.
Right.
We obviously also support OVS, vRouter, eBPF, and we're obviously looking at VPP as well.
Right.
So all of these things can run on the same hardware.
Right.
So you don't have to change the hardware. You just load a new load of software on it.
Wow, that's very impressive.
And that allows the carrier to then migrate and proceed along this path towards, say, using VirtIO, XVIO in our case, as an interface which solves 1,000 problems in terms of the maintainability, the expandability, and the continuation of the product from their perspective.
What other holdups do you think there are preventing NFV from being widely deployed at the moment? One of the ones which I get a sense is a concern for some service providers is that they don't want to get locked in to the same provider, the same company, the Huawei, the Cisco, the Ericsson, the Nokia. And it sort of feels to me like those incumbents, have sort of a vested interest in not working terribly hard to make sure that NFVI infrastructure and VNFs are interoperable. Do you agree with that? And is there a solution to that problem for the industry?
I think it's most definitely a problem. I think it's a problem for the carriers in their perception of how things are going. I think it's a choice that they have to make. Either you go back to the old ways of doing things, and you go back to the old troughs, and you understand that it's going to cost you a lot of money. I think there was some mention about the revenue models crossing over. I published by you in the last week or so, and that obviously is not going to work from that perspective. So it is a question that, just like the cloud service providers, carriers will have to take charge of more of their own destiny, and not just rely on the vendors, fundamentally. And it also then brings very strongly into play open source software. This is where OpenStack is very important. Obviously, all of the things which are open software loads for these things, whether it be Open Daylight, everything that the Linux Foundation is pushing, and not pushing, I shouldn't use that as a term, but are promoting and getting out in the market, I think is very important. And then from our perspective as a hardware platform, we are absolutely open. So some of our customers actually do not take any of our ready-made applications. They actually build their own.
Fantastic.
Because we have all the tools available that allows them to do that.
When you say the tools, do you mean an API?
Compilers, APIs, libraries.
So those would be APIs which would allow a VNF to be
a VNF, or alternatively your own version of a virtual switch.
Right.
Because you'll find that some of the key big cloud service providers have done exactly that. They have their own versions of these things, and we enable that entirely in an open way.
Is the API actually standard, or is it something that you've developed?
There's many different APIs. So some of them are completely standard, whether it be an OpenFlow API, which controls OVS, the OpenContrail APIs for vRouter is standardized. So there's a variety of mechanisms which are open, but there's many different APIs.
Don't you think that it would be a good idea if, as an industry, we picked one, and then if everybody was conforming to the same API, then maybe we could actually create a marketplace for services and applications and know that they were going to run with everything? I mean, it feels to me like that's something as an industry that we've always been very good at, but it hasn't happened this time, primarily, I think, because of, for all of that's good about open source community isn't very interested in standards and certification and things like that. Do you think there's going to come a time when we need to do that?
I think it's a question of building the code and getting it out there and participating. And this is a new way, effectively, as I see standards evolving. Things like the Linux kernel. There's a lot of evolution happening in that. And there's a lot of new things which are coming along, which is specifically important for this market, which will be very important. And that is helping to standardize some of these things. And what I'm talking about is things like eBPF, XDB, things which allow the kernel to be a lot more efficient in handling packets.
Right. What can we expect from you this year, Niel?
A continuation of software. So if we take the OVS roadmap, for example, so we started with an OVS 2.3 accelerated version, which basically gives about 5-10x, depends on exactly how you test it, performance over a non-accelerated version of it. We've migrated up to 2.5, which brought along with it a contract, which is the ability to do distributed firewalling, and it's fully supported by the OpenStack releases. So that allows somebody to deploy those security mechanisms in a transparent way, but fully accelerated and not consuming all of your CPU. Then we're now also supporting 2.6, which is the latest version of OVS, which is out there, which includes NAT, Network Address Translation. So that is now also accelerated and supported. So those are the kinds of things which has come from us over the last year, and we're continuing along that path. So as the new features roll out, as all of those elements roll out, we support them.
So actually, I mean, a slight hiccup in the deployment of live NFV is not necessarily a bad thing in the long term for customers, because they're going to get a more fully rounded feature set from you by the time they are moving to live deployment.
It's a continuous evolution. But of course, as somebody once said, they trained their horse to not eat a lot, and then just when they got it there that it didn't need any more feed, it died. So that's always a danger. So we'd much prefer to, as we are, working with customers and deploying with customers and have it all, because this is all software, so the hardware doesn't change. So you can deploy the hardware as standard, as a standard environment, evolve by deploying the new elements of software or new releases of the software and growing along that line. And then I'll also be very blunt and frank. Some key customers have specific needs, which we then help them address. But you have to get engaged and you have to start doing things.
You have to know exactly what those are before you start doing bespoke solutions, but it's great that you can do that. I mean, there's no question that the industry is going to virtualize, and NFV is a thing. It's not like it's going to... there's no plan B here. There's no escape. So we have to just get the timing.
Exactly.
And we have to solve very specific problems, which I think is what you've become known for doing. I mean, you're a virtualization pragmatist, and that's what we need more of right now. Less hype, more solutions. So,
indeed.
Yeah, I always enjoy talking to you. It's fantastic to see you again. Congratulations on everything, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with you this year.
No, this year is a crucial year for a lot of evolution.
It is.
In this particular space, and looking forward to it.
Thanks, Niel.
Thanks.